Well, welcome to the PDPW Dairy Signal. On behalf of the professional dairy producers, my name is Shelley Meyer, and I'm excited to be with you guys here today because we're going to talk about keeping all 4 feet on the ground, and these feet are made for walking. And we're going to talk about today that cow, the center of our dairy universe, taking care of that number one female on every dairy operation. And that's the one that goes through the parlor that works for us each and every day. And with us, we have our dairy account manager from Zimpro. Zimpro has been a great partner with professional dairy producers almost from day one. And we've worked with Mr. Roger Olson many, many, many times. Roger's served as an advisor to PDP and has worked with dairy farmers literally around the globe. Today, though, we're going to be talking about some of those big things that we need to always pay attention to on our operation, but we're going to really hone in also on maybe some of the things, a step from the cow that really helps us with cow, and that is some of the record keeping. So I'm going to encourage each and every one of you, if you're an industry partner, working out there on dairy farms with our best and our brightest, the dairy farmers, or a fellow dairy farmer, please use this platform. If you're listening to us live, go on to the platform. You can type in your questions. We would love to hear from you, and Roger will tailor this program to fit your needs. Those of you who are listening to the recording, we'll try to go as quickly as possible through everything, but always know that professional dairy producers wants your feedback. This program is an accredited program so that you can get credit for it as well. And then at some point, we'll talk about an upcoming hoof care program that will be offered to dairy producers both in the New York area, so out in the Northeast for our friends and family out there, as well as another location here in Wisconsin. Roger, who the heck are you? I gave you kind of a big overview, but let's tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I've been a dairy specialist for Zinpro for about 15 years, which means I do a lot of which basically means I do a lot of hoof related type of events. Trim records, a little bit about what I'll be talking about today, trying to figure out how to make records look better, how to make cows walk better, that kind of thing. Previously, I've been a nutrition support person for a number of years. My wife Jody and I used to milk 1,200 cows up in Minnesota for a long time with a herd that had pretty good hoof health. Been involved with PDPW for a long time, like you said. Been around the dairy industry forever. So
Most important question I need to know is please tell me you're not a Vikings fan.
I am in no way, shape, or form a Vikings fan, even though I live 12 miles from Minnesota. So,
Okay. And does that make you a Packer fan then?
absolutely.
All right, we can talk. All right, you can
Yep.
continue. You made it through your first test. So
Yep.
when we start thinking about keeping these cows, utilizing good trim, being proactive and keeping those feet are made for walking and keeping that cow at the bunk and walking to the parlor. I'm just going to have you kind of advance through this and take control here of the wheel, and we'll have a conversation about it. As folks have questions, I'll probably interrupt you throughout the time that we have together.
Please do. Please do. And this presentation that I'm going to give today is an abridged version of part of what I'll be presenting actually at the Hoof Health conferences, both here in Wisconsin and New York, along with the other two presenters. And definitely welcome questions as we walk through it. And what this is about is how do we utilize trimming records proactively to manage hoof health. A big part of any kind of a data entry system that we have, lameness, hoof health records are no different, is if we have garbage that goes into the system, we're going to have garbage that comes out. Sometimes when I look at records, sometimes I can identify some obvious things, but subtle changes that are a little bit off, I can't are hard to see. So it's worth our time to come up with some kind of a system where everybody that's involved with the hoof records is on the same page. And the people that are involved in my book are the trimmer, you know, the data entry person, and that may be somebody in the office on the dairy. It may be the trimmer themselves at the chute, using one of the newer electronic systems such as Hoof Supervisor, All Four Hooves, Boba Sync, Lameness Manager, and Dairy Comp. Those are all helpful because you eliminate some work and you eliminate one error. But I want to make sure both of those two people are on the same page as somebody like myself that actually analyzes the records. And that sounds like a really simple idea. It should be, but over the years, it really has not been. Part of it's the industry's fault. We've had some very complicated systems where we've had lesion zones, and they really don't exactly make sense. They're not really common sense kind of a things, kind of a concepts. So about 4 years ago, myself and a guy named Lee Erickson that actually works with me, we come up with a really simple system um, that we can utilize that shows this. Those of you in the tractor probably can't see this, but I have a picture of a foot from the underside, and I just have letters or lesion identification letters on the bottom of a foot. Basically, it shows a U for a sole ulcer. And the way this works is if you're trimming a foot and you see a lesion and it's in that area where the U is on the picture, you can look at the bottom of this poster and there's a sole ulcer on the very bottom, the U. And the beauty of this is whether you're an old trimmer that's been around forever, or you're a brand new person just learning how to trim today, you can use this chart and figure out that I'm in the U area of the chart. That's a sole ulcer. Now the trimmer, the data entry person, and myself, the analyst, are all thinking that a sole ulcer is a sole ulcer. We're all on the same page. And we've got all the major lesions are on here: sole ulcers, white lines, toe ulcers, foot rot, which is the F in between the hooves, and then D or warts, digital dermatitis, is in the back. Can't emphasize this point enough. I get a lot of records. I've gotten a lot of records over the years that just says ulcer or it just says abscess. Ulcers and abscesses are actually just some stage of a lesion. They're not actually a lesion. So Shelley might think that an ulcer is X and I think that it's Y. That's not uncommon at all. And that's why it's so important to have a common system that everybody can understand. You can understand it literally in a minute or two. It's that simple, that easy. Moving on into just a few examples of some of the things that we can look at when we're looking at data. I've got a few examples here, but when we're doing this, it's really nice to do a trim analysis once a year up. And what that allows you to do is if you have a lesion related issue and you make a couple of changes, with those, a lot of these lesions, it takes a while. It takes quite a few months before you start to see the direction of the ship change. Um, and about once a year is not too often, but it's often enough to catch the change. And so I like doing these more or less about the same month with all the herds that I work with over the years. And when you do that, it gives you the ability to go, okay, well, it looks to me like we have a sole ulcers is our biggest issue. So then, you know, people like myself, we will go, what are all the things that are causing the sole ulcers? What can we do to fix it? Come up with 3 things or so. Try and get them changed sooner than later, and then wait till next year, get them done, and then next year see how we did. And it's always good to see progress, and I have a few examples of some of those that are involved here.
Roger, say that again. Was that a shift change, a ship change, or some other kind of change?
It was the ship direction change.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to
Sorry
correct your
about that.
diction there. Yep.
Yeah. Um, I've got a few just examples here, and I apologize for you that are listening in a tractor or something like that. But I have a picture of a slide that shows different lactations: lactation 1, lactation 2, lactation 3, and 3 plus, if you will. And I have days in milk laid out in categories like 0 to 60, 61 to 120, all the way through dry. And then I have types of lesions and also maintenance trims, or those you can see. The yellow is trim only on this particular application. And what this chart shows is that all the cows are being trimmed at dry off, 301 days and on basically, whether they're lactation 1, 2, or 3 plus. We have lactation 2 and 3 plus. It shows that these cows are being trimmed mid-lactation. And the one thing it does not show is lactation 1 being trimmed at mid-lactation. Uh, it's fairly common here in the Midwest where we have heifers raised in barns that we trim all lactations mid-lactation and dry off. This particular application, these heifers are raised on a dry lot. Their feet are in great shape when they get to the dairy. And there's really not a need to trim them. And this lactation 1 portion of this graph shows that there are very few of those red or blue infectious or non-infectious lesions. There's very few of them before they dry off. So this documents that this herd really does not need to trim its mid-lactation animals in first lactation. Hopefully that helps.
So tell us more. It tells us that, but what might you be really seeing on that farm, or what are some of the things that is that pretty typical of what you would see on a well-managed dairy?
Um, yes, great, excellent question, Shelley. What it says is in this case, these heifers were raised on a dry lot, and heifers raised in a dry lot their hooves tend to wear at about the right angle, and the length of the toe seems to wear up to about the right amount. There may be 10, 12, maybe 15% of them that aren't exactly perfect, but the vast majority, the hooves will be about the right shape. And the infectious issues, warts, foot rot, should not be much of an issue because they're raised in a very dry environment. And if you compare that to maybe a more typical scenario here in Wisconsin or the upper Midwest, where we have heifers raised in freestall barns, that would not be the case at all. Heifers in freestall barns, their claws tend to grow in excess, and then they tend to grow out of balance. So by the time they calve, if we don't trim them around calving and then again at mid lactation, you'll see more lesions in early lactation and mid lactation and heifers raised in barns because the hooves had excess wear, they were out of balance, they tend to be in a wetter, more manure cast kind of an environment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I will move on to the next slide here. This next slide, for those of you in the tractor, I've got the last 12 months of trim data laid across the chart, and then I've got all the major lesions in a bar graph fashion. And for those of you that can see, the blue is what this shows is if you look at the bottom, you can see the last 12 months going backwards from 8 to last December to the August before. And then there's a color-coded lesions and the barcodes are on the bottom. And the one thing that sticks out to me on this chart is the dark blue, the digital dermatitis or warts. You can see from 12 months ago that we have definitely increased. We were running probably 15 or 18, and now we're running more like 25 or 30 head per month that actually has a wart. So one of the things that I would question when in doing these records is why did digital dermatitis increase over the last 12 months? And then we can sit down and try and figure out, did something change with the foot bath? Did we change how we scrape manure in the pens? Are we not getting our wraps off? A number of things like that. We work our way down through the list. On one thing I will say, the lesions that we can influence the fastest, that we can literally see the difference in months, maybe not in closer to a year, are the infectious ones, like foot rot and warts. Is they are on the skin, they're not inside of the hoof, so we can affect them a lot faster than we can, say, thin soles, toe ulcers, white lines, sole ulcers, that kind of thing.
And the reason for that is because the thin soles, white line, those are handling or more environmental circumstances that are more difficult to modify versus the treatment or the prevention of the infectious.
Yes, yes. And maybe to add a little bit more to that is pretty much all of the non-infectious lesions as a result of the environment, as you said, Shelley, they actually start inside of the claw capsule.
Mm.
They don't actually happen on the outside. They actually start inside. And the lesion, the lesion will occur inside of the claw capsule. It takes about 45 days, maybe up to 60 days for that lesion to start inside of the claw capsule and actually grow its way out, if you will, to the surface. And that's why a lot of times we all know that during summer heat stress, cows tend to stand up a lot more. And when cows stand more, they have more lesions. And they don't, as soon as it gets hot, the lesions don't start. Like maybe the middle of May, it'll get hot enough that they'll start standing more. But maybe it's more typically it's more like July, August, where you start to see a lot more lesions. And August and September are probably two of the worst months, and then it continues on to as much as November. A lot of that's because of this delayed response of when the lesions started 45 to 60 days ago to the when they're actually expressed on the outside of the claw and we actually see them, if that makes sense.
So when does the pain for the cow start? And really the decline then when we see milk production and the first real signs of it? Is it, you know, does
It,
she
it
feeling that pain right away from standing too much, the
um,
pressure?
you know, I really don't know exactly, but I can say that somewhere around day 35 or day 40 with a bunch of these lesions is when they'll start to have their locomotion score will change, i.e. their back will hump up a little bit more, they'll short stride, that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
I believe that's probably an indication that the pain is starting somewhere right about then. One thing about cows is they're a herding animal and they do have an amazing ability to hide pain.
Um,
I get a paper cut and I'm whining. They can walk around with half a clog on and they can cover it up. So, okay, I'll move on to the next slide here. Uh, the slide I'm talking about now actually has days in milk in groupings along the bottom axis, like 0 to 60 days, 61 to 120, all the way to dry off, et cetera. And then I just have a number of events that are occurring on the left-hand column. And then the same color coded lesion on the bottom. And what this one shows is dark blue again is digital dermatitis. This herd, it's quite obvious that we have 60 DD events in the first 60 days. And we also have about 70 DD events at our mid-lactation trim. What this tells me is we had so many fresh cow warts, which means we probably had a problem with our dry cows and or pre-fresh animals, but they really usually don't express warts DD all that much as a dry cow or a pre-fresh animal. But what happens is when they have a calf, their immune system, the functionality decreases quite a bit, and that the bacteria, the trypanemia that causes warts are just hanging out. They were kind of being held at bay, but when that immune function falls out of bed because she just had a calf, the trypanemia take a hold, they cause a wart, and then a few days later we got a wart. So this tells me we probably really need to work on dry cows and pre-fresh in terms of preventing DD.
uh,
And where this herd came from, I also know that the most of the DD is actually at that mid lactation trim. This herd, for whatever reason, they had no way to actually identify lame cows. So the trimmer was identifying the lame cows. They were lame for a while, and when he went to their regular maintenance trims, he fixed them. He identified that she had digital dermatitis. So
So
this,
just
go ahead.
talk direct to me. When you say they had no way of identifying lame cows, nobody was seeing these cows walk up to the bunk, or nobody was seeing these cows come into a parlor at any time. How does that happen?
They just flat out weren't getting the job done, quite honestly.
Okay.
And in honesty, this particular herd, there was a major death in the family,
Okay.
and this was the year following it. So
We've all had those times
real
when,
life, it's
yeah,
real life.
yeah.
When we did this evaluation, this is quite obvious. So we actually set and had a 2-day how to pick lame cow class and they had a fairly major change in their employees also, kind of as a result of the
Sure.
death. So we had a big 2-day event on how to pick lame cows, and things are tremendously better today. So
So we lost our cow person that could identify cow
yes, we did.
abuse.
Yes, we did.
And so every business and every person goes through the valleys and peaks of life. And here it showed
Yep,
up on the cow reports.
yep,
Got it.
absolutely. And that one person was a pretty big deal at this size of a dairy.
Yeah. We need to earmark that one.
Yep. Moving on to the next one, I have a series of these blue slides, if you will, and what it shows is I have some kind of a trimming entity on the left-hand column, like lactational in animals with lesions, all cows that had a lesion. And what I really want to show though is there's a number of years of data here. There's a 24, a 23, a 23, a 22, and a 21. The years that I have trimming data. It's really easy to see where we were a few years back with each one of these entities. And rather than explain all these entities, I'm going to move to the next screen, which is the same concept where we've got previous year's worth of data, and the left-hand column shows all the major lesions like digital dermatitis, foot rot, sole ulcers, thin sole toe ulcers, etc. And when you look across here, for instance, if we look at digital dermatitis, in 2021, they were running 19%. In 2024, they were running 4%. This particular herd I know is actually down to about 2% because I just did their information last week. So it's really cool if you can watch the progression, or in some cases, unfortunately, the regression where we get worse. So it's
So Roger,
really
what's the
easy.
industry standard? Are we still around that 13%? I remember that number a few years ago when I was
Yep,
working.
we are about 13 to 14% is an industry standard. One thing that I failed to mention, I'm glad you brought that up, Shelley, is if you look on this chart, the right-hand column, there's a column called goal equals 20th percentile. What this is within Zinpro, we have a huge database for the upper Midwest, and we have herds where where we believe the data looks correct. We include all of those herds. We have other herds where we're pretty sure the data is not correct. There's half a month missing or whatever it is. We do not include that data. So this is kind of a pre-qualified set of data. And these goal numbers are merely just the 20th percentile number. So you can kind of like the A minus number, if you will, if that helps you. So,
Yeah.
um, and I do change these goals. It's at certain herds. If there are some situations where it's not realistic that we're going to have perfect numbers for a really old facility or something like that. But I occasionally will change the goals depending on the situation.
So
But
just as a dairy farmer, if we looked at 13 or 14%, if we look at our time in a year,
mhm,
if we were lame ourselves, if we had a foot, knee, injury or something that was slowing us down and we're actively the one out working on the farm, 14% of your time would be pretty much a limitation for you to do what you want to do. When we
that's a
look
really
at
big,
14% of our national herd as being lame, there's still quite a bit of room for
oh yeah,
improving the mobility.
absolutely is. And one other thing to kind of bring that point home is on average, if you took all these lesions together and you took an average cost or net loss per if you will, of each lesion, it's about $400.
Hmm.
So that's a lot. That's a really big number. So it's
Yeah.
worth not, or it's worth trying to prevent these lesions and just having as few as possible.
So Roger, when they talk about the cost of lame cows, do they look at, things like a lame cow or a slow cow moving through the parlor costs more time. It costs on parlor turn. She's eating probably as much feed to maintain herself, but you're not getting the profitability. What all goes into that $400 loss?
So there's been like four pretty well done national peer-reviewed trials. And what they do include is lost milk production, treatment cost, extra days open, higher call rate, a little less dollar value per animal sold. It does not include what I'm going to call the soft costs that are real things, like this one cow is going to slow down the one side of that double 24 parallel that you got. It doesn't include a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's really not even a complete number. But
And then
that,
there's just mental fatigue. It's
oh
not
yeah,
working with animals that are lame.
yeah,
Just
people do not want to deal with lame cows for all those reasons.
Mhm.
And some of these lame cows turn into down cows, and we owe it to the cow not to have those kind of situations happen because
Absolutely.
it's never good, and it never looks good when you're trying to deal with a down cow. So
Right. Well, it's just a bad day. So preventing a
yes,
bad day by keeping her on her feet and keeping her feeling well is our goal. All right. So this is a result though of you to be able to come up with these kind of numbers, you have to have data that
right,
you can really drill down into.
yep, you do.
On your farms, what percent of the time do you have data that you feel like you mentioned? Sometimes we look at data, it looks good, but we know it's not accurate by probably looking over the cows. Um, what kind of time goes into that and training, and how do you get to the point? Maybe you have soft data now, you want to get better. What kind of coaching do you guys give people?
So what I would say is we do encourage that they have some kind of a data entry by the trimmer system, whether it's lameness manager and dairy comp or Bovisync or hoof supervisor, something where the trimmer's out there and right shoot side he can say the cow 100 has a footwork. Wham, 100 footwork done. Right along with that, you know, uh, iPad or whatever they're using at the shoot is they have the poster that I showed earlier with a cow foot with all
Right.
the legends and what location. Those two things are huge. It's probably the biggest one is actually is the poster because then we're all thinking exactly the same commentary for what a soul ulcer actually is.
So it's like a map, and it's only got five parts to it. You have to pick one of those five things. If
Yes.
she's got a foot problem, you break it down to five
Yep.
and the
Yep.
location in which it occurred and
Yep.
move on.
Yep. 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 So that poster or something like that, it's a really big deal. And to eliminate errors and make it efficient, a lot of these electronic recording systems are great.
Okay.
Um, and they've really cleaned things up a lot. So that would be the really big stuff. And then there's some other little things that come along the way, but
So
that's the
then
big stuff.
on this table, though, I see more um, lesions or descriptions than those five. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. So this particular herd, they do record, like soul. They record, what do we have here? Thin soles. Uh, I've dealt with this herd for a long time, probably all 15 years. They used to have a lot larger thin sole issue than they have now. Like we're down to 0.5%. Because they had that particular problem, we opted to just continue recording thin soles. Uh, Most herds thin soles are kind of a non-issue. There might be, 0.1%. That's really, if it's such a small amount, we're not worried about it. But if it's been a bigger issue, we will include it. There's a few other things that we would include that would be things like thin sole that aren't on that map. One would be like medial claw rotation or corkscrew feet. And corkscrew feet, again, are kind of more like a herd by herd specific situation. They've got reasons as to why they have a lot higher corkscrew percentage than the industry by far. So
It
there's
is not,
exceptions, but they're
it,
easy to deal with these one or two or three exceptions and get the 95% of the problems right at all locations by using that poster. And we thought about adding more things on, but then the poster gets all too cluttered up and
right.
gets harder to understand. So we wanted to get the base really well clearly defined, and then these few exceptions, we'll add them if we have to. That's a good catch. I was glad you saw that.
Yeah. So on this chart, if we talked about five from the original poster that you showed
Mhm.
us to begin with, this chart has 12, but it's because this farm has customized it based on where they started with some of their issues and how they've progressed.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. And they used to not have a very good system. And now we have a lot better system. So if I showed you the previous 10 years before this, yeah, all those would have numbers on them. And like horizontal fissures, there was probably like 2 cows a year. And well, and this was like this herd's about 1,500 cows, 1,600 cows. One or two horizontal fissures, we're not going to do anything about it anyway. So it just confuses the issue, makes things more
Okay.
complicated. So,
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
okay. The last of this series of slides that's laid out the same where we have the history and we have a 20th percentile goal numbers. I'm talking about repeat rates. So if what a repeat is if she had a lesion in the last 12 months and she had occurred again, that would be a repeat. Like example, warts, it says 5% for the 8/6 of 24. We had 5% of the animals had a wart, got treated for a wart a second time in the last 12 months. And these numbers are actually pretty good. You might think I'm a little crazy when you look at the toe ulcers at 21%. Notice the previous history though, where we're anywhere from 50 to 42 to 43%. Toe ulcers by far are the hardest things to fix at the trim chute. So 21% doesn't sound like a very good number, but it's actually not too bad. So,
Okay.
and a couple other things that we're going to talk about at the Hoof conferences this summer is all these major lesions, what causes them, and what are some of the things that we can do to prevent them. And like I have an example here of a white line. A white line is in the back. Most all of them are in the back corner of the back feet on the outside. And the weakest part of the foot is where that white line is. And if that animal is walking on a floor, like what I have pictured here, and for those of you in the tractor, what this picture shows is it's a floor that the mortar has been eaten away severely. There's a lot of granite aggregate or rocks sticking out all over the place. And then the grooves are completely rounded off. So it's really easy for those you can see that picture. If a cow is standing on this and she happens to turn just right, that she can rip that white light open and get a little bit of crap up in there, it's going to get infected. So this would be a pretty common thing for white lines. And then what we're going to talk about all the major lesions as with it in a lot more detail than this for each one of them. Also, we'll mention myself and Carl and the other gentleman. We'll talk about what hooves should not look like that are, from a health perspective. And I have pictures of three hooves here that show there's a real yellowish color to a lot of that horn material. And notice that where they have a lot of these blue arrows, there's like red hemorrhaging. That's very damaged tissue. Highly likely that those damaged areas will turn into some kind of a lesion eventually. And then also the hoof on the right, the horn wall in between the toes, in between the claws is literally peeling off. That's all stuff that we do not want to see. Here's some more pictures of some hooves from the underside again. And where the blue arrows are on the left in the center picture, it shows a very weak white line. Notice how wide they are and how striated they are. And it's very obvious that you can see it. And then that hoof on the right you can't tell by the picture exactly, but it's a very short, very thin-soled claw. Literally, I could take my finger and at the toe, I could just poke it and it would give very, very easily. It'd be like, it'd be like me walking on gravel without any shoes on. really hurts. Same thing for a cow. That sole should normally be a quarter of an inch, and that's enough of a cushion that they don't feel a lot of the pain. Conversely, I've got three pictures here of underside of feet again that are really nice looking hooves. And this is what we want to see. Notice that there's no yellowish hue to it. There's no red hemorrhaging anywhere. The white lines in between the toes along the outside is really strong. You can see a very clear white line along the claws where we've trimmed. So these are what we definitely want to see. And we'll go into that in a lot more detail at the class. And my last conclusion slide here, I won't read all these, but in general with feet, one thing I've learned, and we all dairy people know it is really hard to treat your way out of a problem cost effectively. You really need to do things to prevent the problem in the first place, not just try not to treat your way out of the problem. And we will spend a bunch of time talking about that at the two conferences also. And that is my whole PowerPoint.
So I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this conference. We've done other hands-on hoof care events, and Zimpro really has been the industry leader on this. I mean, keeping cows on their feet and ending all the lame reasons for lameness. But the reason that we're doing this is dairy farmers asked for it because they recognize that all the time these cows are important, and keeping them walking to the bunk, to the water, and to milk. And our cows are on their feet, and some of these places they have to walk a little bit farther, and they're on concrete.
Yes.
But producers have asked for this. We're doing them in two locations around Wisconsin. The first, or two locations around the country, excuse me. The first location is going to be on Tuesday, June 16th, and it's going to be at Adirondack Farms in Plattsburgh, New York. So for some of our dairymen in the Northeast, kind of mark that day down again, Tuesday, June 16th. Contact your Zimpro team or PDP. We'll give you more details on it. Watch for it. It'll be on our website. And then that same week, back here in Wisconsin, we'll be at Miltram Farms up by Athens on June 18th, and we'll do the exact same program. This is hands-on. It's a great place to bring your management team, the people that are around your cows all the time. If it's your veterinarian, your nutritionist, your hoof trimmer, and obviously the person that you count on the most that's responsible for identifying. When I asked, like, why wasn't that farm identifying? Well, their cow person was no longer with them, for identifying and taking care of these cows. So keeping her on her feet is what we're all about, because it is motion is what makes margin.
Yep.
Roger, is this time of year, we're right on the cusp of, if we're not already into it, the busiest time. Like, we've got to be hitting fields, and as dairy farmers, a lot of us make feed. So crop and the weather is also important to us. What are three things that someone needs to be checking before, at least in the Midwest, we haven't hit the heat and the hell of summer? What are some of the things that we can still do to be proactive and prepared that might help offset some additional work stories that come up in the fall?
Yeah. So three big ones is related to cows standing when it's hot. Is number one is get your fans all operating. You make sure that they're actually pointed in the right direction. You want to make sure that you have fast moving air over the cows' heads for sure, like 200 to 400 feet per minute. Um, Besides that, the second one, and also very important, is make sure all your sprinklers are actually working. Uh, and then a third thing related to that is with those sprinklers is make sure that get somebody like me to check them. Make sure that you're actually soaking to the skin with your sprinklers. You're not just getting the top wet. You got to get the cow's skin soaked with water and then evaporate that water off of her skin. That's actually what transposes the heat out of the cow. It's not that you got her wet. You got to get her wet enough so she's soaked to the skin, blow air on her like crazy, evaporate the water, and it cools her off. Just kind of like when you're a kid and you got out of the pool at the swimming pool, that effect, that's what we want the cows to have every 15 minutes or whatever it is.
So
That would,
check all of that stuff now and get it fixed. Replace
yep,
nozzles, make sure you've got enough water coming through, make sure the
yep,
fans are pointed in the right direction, the right speed. Yeah,
yep,
those are things that are easier to
yep,
do than when we hit our first 90-degree day.
yep. I see it's 46 degrees where I'm at. Perfect day to be doing this kind of stuff. We
It
haven't
might
lost
be,
any milk production or anything yet, so.
that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Anything else you'd like to leave us with today?
Uh, Come to the Hoof Health conferences. Really looking forward to it. The three of us presenters are excited about it. So,
I think that it's the reason we do this is not only because producers are asking for it, but it's another way to just stay up on the leading edge of things. There's always new things. And sometimes the best knowledge comes from the people that come to the conference in the room. It's that time of sharing over lunch of what's working, what's not.
yep.
And also that concept, you're not the only one dealing with it.
Oh,
So,
no, no.
great way to really make a big difference sometimes is, as one of my favorite colleagues in industry would say, it's not what you do that's 100% better, but it's 100 things that you can do 1% better. And that's
That's
what we
right.
want to hone
Yeah.
on reducing lame cows and lame
Yep.
profits. So
Correct.
Mr. Roger Olson, friend of dairy, longtime colleague. We thank our friends at Zimpro and all of the other colleagues that work hand in hand with us. One of the things that you made today, and I'm just going to leave my final comment for fellow producers and industry people. We talked about that one dairy that was obviously missing that one person that they had lost in their
Yep.
team suddenly. I want
Yes.
each of us this time of year just to take a moment of reflection and think about, I think I'll liken it to pick and stone, and each of us are a very unique rock out in the field. But in our businesses and our families and on our dairies, we are really a bunch of stones that are put together maybe as a rock wall within our community. We're the cornerstone that hold a lot of things together. Singly, we can't do everything, but together we can do almost anything. And so as you're taking that moment on the tractor, get off the tractor, take a break. You think you don't have time for lunch, you do. Because to you right now, you think the whole world counts on that 1 minute of getting that seed in the ground, but ultimately, to you, you are the whole world to someone else. So make sure that you take that moment, take care of the people around you, and remember just how much you're valued because nothing happens on your farm, including the care of your cows, without you. So with that, we leave you and we'll see you back on Thursday on the Dairy Signal. For now, signing out, make today your very best.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.